I'll just be happy. I'll just take any questions. I think it's probably the best way to go about it.
Okay, well, let's start with the suit was filed back in August, and you said then that it was after a decade of trying to negotiate with the legislature. So what's changed to make you choose to drop this?
Over the last couple of weeks, we've had very good discussions with members of the Alabama legislative leadership, and you just can't plan for that, right? I mean, that's awesome. Over the last few weeks, we've had very good discussions with members of the legislative leadership. I think there's a consensus among most in Montgomery that the SSUT system is outdated and needs to be modernized. Now, how you get there is certainly going to be something that will take a lot of work among many. But I think there was a sense that if we were willing to dismiss the lawsuit without prejudice, which gives us the opportunity to refile, there would be a good opportunity for us to seek a legislative solution. Because ultimately, and this was our thought process here at the City of Tuscaloosa, is that if ultimately the legal flaws that we believe are there were adjudicated in our favor, after appeals, you're talking a 2 to 3 year period, which we knew from the very beginning. But even so, with that, ruled in our favor, ultimately you would have to go back to the Alabama legislature. I believe there's an awareness that there's some issues within the SSUT. They need to be addressed. And I feel that we should take this opportunity because we believe ultimately that there is a solution out there that does a few things. One, it protects the state's general fund. Two, it protects cities and municipalities who have become accustomed to this funding over the last 10 years. And lastly, it moves us to destination sourcing, which ultimately would modernize our tax code.
I know that the city of Mountain Brook joined. Were there other municipalities?
There were 19 other parties that were involved in this lawsuit, and we have been working collaboratively on this. So it's not just the city of Tuscaloosa. Certainly we were proud to be the lead city in taking action along with Mountain Brook and then have others join. But we've worked collaboratively with our partners in Mobile, Hoover, and all across the state of Alabama.
Yeah. Do you have a specific goal in mind? I know something that had to do with the people like Amazon, Walmart, and Target not paying tax because while they're not headquartered here, they do have physical presence. Is that the idea to get that loophole erased, or is it more of a percentage shifting to point of origin sales?
Our stated position from the very beginning is to move to destination sourcing. In other words, where a person takes possession of an item, let's say an Amazon package delivered to your address, that the tax rate applies for where you took possession of it. That's known as destination sourcing. That is currently how traditional sales tax is done in Alabama, and it should apply to internet-based sales taxes as well. Technology has evolved. In fact, Apple does that today. And so it's not something that is something that can't be done. It's done in 24 other states across our country.
Mayor, could you talk about just the details of what led to this decision?
Well, a few weeks ago, we began getting, 2 weeks ago we had discussions with legislative leadership that indicated a willingness to seek and try to find a solution. We've, in return for, good faith negotiations, the willingness to drop our lawsuit without prejudice, we felt like that was something we should do because at the end of the worst case scenario, we lose a few months in the process because we will have the opportunity to refile again in the future. But I believe there is a sincere effort among those in legislative leadership that understand that we must modernize our tax code. At the same time, the state's general fund, what municipalities and cities have been receiving thus far under the SSUT program, we have to figure a way where they're not harmed by any solution. I believe that if people of good faith get into a room, I think there can be a solution to this that meets those stated goals.
Overall, what's the end goal?
Well, the end goal would be to modernize the way the internet sales are done here in Alabama and modernize that towards destination sourcing. That is ultimately the end goal. There are legal flaws, we believe, that exist within SSUT, and so having those legal flaws remedied certainly would be, for us, a very good solution. Make no mistake about it, today is only the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. There is a lot more work to be done. This doesn't dictate a positive outcome. It just gives us an opportunity to keep a door open. And I think that was a very important opportunity, and that's why you saw 18 other partners with us all unanimously move in this direction to dismiss the lawsuit without prejudice. There's going to be a lot of work to do in the weeks and months ahead.
If there's more work to do, what will be the next steps?
The next step is going to be convene the significant parties involved in this matter and begin mapping out a framework for what is, Bismarck said that politics is the art of the possible. We're going to have to map out of what is the art of the possible with this and begin negotiations. Again, it will not be easy. This is not something that's simple. SSUT and its legal flaws have been present for some time. Working through all that will be complicated, but just because it's complicated doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And I felt, I can't speak for the other 18 parties that joined with us in this lawsuit, but I know for me, if we have an opportunity to significantly address this issue with leadership within the Alabama legislature that is willing and wants to, it is worth us moving forward in this direction. I certainly believe that filing that lawsuit really highlighted some of what we believe are the fundamental legal flaws within SSUT and an awareness that they do need to be addressed sooner rather than later.
My last question is there a timetable as far as like when discussions are going to be had, or is it still like a near future type thing?
There's certainly, there are some preliminary plans in place to begin that, but I suspect that we will know more in the coming days and weeks ahead. The Alabama legislature this time of year is extremely busy. They have multiple things that they are working on. Leadership is engrossed in those multiple things that are going on, and this will just be one more thing. But I do believe that this has broken through and that there is a real willingness for us to go and explore what is the art of the possible.
Mayor, I heard a question from Avery Boyce. She said, do you feel that the lawsuit was the impetus that caused the legislature to be willing to have these conversations?
I certainly believe that the city, along with our 18 other partners filing this lawsuit and highlighting the legal flaws in a judicial setting, set the stage for us to have some very productive conversations in recent weeks about is there a framework through legislative action to correct those legal issues.